And repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. Keeping the palms joined. Palms down. So good evening, everybody. Nice to see you all, especially those we haven't seen in a long time. It was funny, I always say that like the last 7 minutes of conversations I have with people coming into the class is usually enough to talk about for like 4 hours. But there's this idea that, especially if we're newer to meditation or Buddhist practice, that something from Buddhism or something from meditation is going to be the thing that kind of helps us, fix us, saves us, as I dare use that expression. But often we're looking for something outside of ourselves to be the thing that makes everything better. And unfortunately, or fortunately, depending upon how you look at it, really what I've learned from Buddhist practice is that it doesn't necessarily fix anything. It just allows us to be with things as they are. And when we learn to be with things as they are, that doesn't mean that things are wonderful. And part of the struggle is that we seem to constantly be trying to make things great or better or fix them. And a big part of this practice is learning to be okay with things as we go through our days. And that means you're going to face challenges, you're going to face difficulties, you're going to face struggles. There's going to be constant hurdles that we have to try to go through every day. And to me, I think that's one of the most important parts of this practice over the years, is to kind of let go of trying to fix things and be with them as they are. If you begin to kind of bring that into your life, it makes things a little bit easier. Doesn't mean your problems go away, but you're able to look at them without so much ego. And when we begin to cut through that ego and that pride that says, I want it like this or I want it like that, when we learn to stop kind of pointing the fingers, pointing the blame, and we just take each moment to be okay with ourselves, then life can be quite nice. So with that, we'll start with the meditation practice. A couple things to tell you before we begin. For those who may be sitting for the first time, nothing's going to happen to you. Okay? You're not going to float away, unfortunately. You won't have any mystical, magical experiences. Anyone's mind race all day long, just thinking and thinking and thinking, doesn't shut off. All right, this isn't going to shut off your racing mind. Don't judge your practice, meaning don't ask yourself, is this working? Is this not working? Am I doing this right? Am I doing this wrong? We're just going to sit. We're going to breathe. Sounds, you'll hear them. Okay, phones ring. People make noise. This is life. Life is filled with chaos. And the practice of meditation is learning to get quiet and still within all of the chaos. Don't expect anything, right? Your mind's not going to shut off. You won't think nothing. It won't go blank. You're just going to sit. You're going to breathe. Posture, you just want to be comfortable. If you're on the cushions, often it helps slide into the front third. Pushing the stomach forward. Shoulders are relaxed. Hands can be on the knees or in the lap, whatever's comfortable. If you're on the chairs or benches, same thing, just relaxing the shoulders. Hands on the knees or in the lap. If you need to move, simply move. Movement doesn't make you a bad meditator, it just means you need to move. I'll guide us as we begin, and we'll settle into a little bit of silence. And starting with the eyes closed if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth is open or closed, whatever's comfortable. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And eventually, settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Start with gently guiding the attention, focus, to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply going to continue this practice, observing sensation of breath. Expecting nothing but to sit and breathe. As the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it. Release that thought. Return attention, focus to the breath. Where's your mind? Return attention, focus to the breath. keeping the mind alert. Aware of each sound. Each thought. Each physical sensation. Yet concerned with nothing but sitting, breathing. learning to be comfortable in stillness, in quiet, wanting nothing but to sit and breathe. And with the body still, rested, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds, and the mind learning to settle, know what it's like to just sit and breathe. Knowing with each breath, there's nothing else to do, nowhere else to go, no one else to be. Everything beautiful, just as it is. Sitting, breathing. Once again, taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. As you slowly open the eyes, slowly begin to move. Most important, practice of meditation is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm, still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, has nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how you sit, hold the hands, or cross the legs. It's nothing to do with the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It's everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samutpata, dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakened. He was a human being no different than anyone in this room who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. What that means, very simply, for all of us in this room, regardless of where you come from or what you believe in or where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. You react. More stuff happens, more reactions. That's what we get. The practice of meditation is simply learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Now, all we're working on is closing the gap to the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, but with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. Imagine going a day without being disturbed by someone. Most of us can't even go an hour without being disturbed by someone, right? This practice is not easy. It's not necessarily fun. Taking care of your mind is the most important thing. Mental, emotional health, and well-being, having a strong mind, strong heart, it's a priority. But we don't make it one usually. It should be a priority. But often it's the last thing we make time for. Meditation is free. Buddhist practice is free. It's sitting, breathing, learning to be kind to yourself and every single person you encounter every moment of your life. That's why it's so simple. You just have to go be nice to people. Always. You can all do that, right? I'll take that as a yes. Once we stop trying to change, fix, control, manipulate everything and everyone around us, which is where we spend so much of our time, hoping they do this, hoping they do that, wishing they would do this, wishing they would do that. So much time trying to control, fix, manipulate others. This practice is learning to gain control of your mind, your thoughts. As my first teacher always said, think good thoughts, speak good words, do good deeds. That's the essence of this entire practice. And that's why it's so difficult. Most of us spend our days trying to build, create something. Trying to get things done. Trying to be successful, whatever that means to you. And then you come together and here or anywhere and you take a few moments to just sit and get quiet, let everything settle. Then we wake up, start the craziness again, build, create, and settle. It helps to allow everything to settle before you do anything. You don't have a crazy, busy, racing mind that drives you insane all day? Show of hands. If your hand's not up, you're lying. Right? Take time each day to just let everything settle before you do anything else. You don't need 20 minutes, you don't need 40 minutes, you don't need to run to someplace. I mean, glad you all ran here, but just take a few moments every day before you start. Close your eyes, take 3 deep breaths. Just allow yourself to settle, become present, and be prepared for the madness of what will be your day. Every day of your life is going to bring so much craziness, so much potential stress, so much potential drama, so much potential madness. Someone I grew up with sent me a message earlier. It was actually kind of funny. I'll just close with this thought and open up to questions. But someone I grew up playing baseball with and sends me a message, and he's like, "Hey, I think a friend of mine goes to your place on Monday nights." It's like, what do you all do there? It was really great. And so I kind of messed with them, and I made up a bunch of stuff, just for fun. And the person responded after a few things, and they said, the world is, the world is, there's so much craziness in the world. And my response in essence was, whether there's craziness in the world or not, this practice isn't about that. The practice is about recognizing there's the craziness in your own mind. And that's usually the first step for kind of opening up to meditation and looking at what the Buddha taught us, to understand that regardless of what madness and craziness is in the world, we have to begin to explore what's the madness and craziness that we bring into that world. The world that we're in didn't get crazy all on its own, I hate to tell you that. We might have something to do with it, at least in your immediate life. Family, friends, traffic, grocery stores. Whatever craziness is in those environments, we play a role in that. And so this practice is about recognizing, what role am I playing in that? Am I bringing compassion, loving kindness, joy to these situations? Or am I bringing anger, greed, ignorance, pride, ego to these situations? So it's taking ownership and responsibility of what we bring into each situation. And I always suggest starting there. To me, that's what this practice is. And each day we kind of take care of that and begin to chip away a little bit at some of the madness that might be in our immediate surroundings. And yes, we all would love to see a world filled with nothing but peace and love and wisdom. But let's start with a much smaller circle before you try to go change and save the world or the planet or anything else we're trying to save and fix. Nothing against the planet, of course. So I'd rather stop there, as usual, and just open up to questions, meditation, Buddhist practice, anything you're sitting with. I always prefer to address things that are on your mind and kind of go from there. Yes, Al.
I struggle with sounds when I try to meditate. I would always try to create the most quiet environment. It was never quiet enough. And when I started coming here, he says, the world is filled with sounds, to find peace within the sounds. But then you say, be aware of all the sounds. When we started tonight, there was like a beeping in the back, like a truck backing up, and that went on, and it wasn't driving me crazy, but I heard it, and it was unsettling.
Yes.
This air conditioner last year used to not upset me. I was very aware of it. Tonight, I was so relieved when it went on because it masked that beeping. And this is like I feel like I'm chasing my tail.
Yeah.
So, how to be aware of sound, let's block them out.
Yeah. Well, first, yes, you are chasing your tail. That's phenomenal. And ironically, the funny thing is, I thought what you were going to say, it goes to show you, but wonderful progress. I don't talk about progress, but you've been at this a while now, and that's great progress. because you recognized it all. It didn't drive you crazy, and that was great. What I would have said before, what I'll say now is when I hear that go on, I'm happy. You know why? They're getting cool. I'm happy for them. So I actually made the mistake of thinking when you said you heard that air go on, and you remember me talking about it last summer, I thought you were going to say that you felt okay with it because it was cooling them down. But it actually just didn't work that way.
It was a mix.
Next summer, I'm planting the seed now for next summer, right? This is a work in progress, right? If we're all still sitting here next summer, when that comes on, what I want you to think about is not did it cover up the beeping, not did it annoy you, not what should you do with it, but think, wow, that air means someone else is being comfortable. And I'm happy for their comfort. It was like, so during the 6-7 months when we did all the construction here, and you probably heard me say this, but for everybody who hadn't heard it, right? So we were quiet here for a year, and then we decided to make a huge mess for about 6-7 months. And it was all volunteers, as you know, many of it was you. And so I kept telling people, like, look, volunteers are working on volunteer time, so they're not going to work around our meditation schedule. And it eventually, for many people, began to get to a place where the volunteers could, they could come in here at 7 in the morning, start working, and we could all sit through it because we knew that they were making the temple that we all use healthier, safer, better, right? And then we got through that for 6 months, and then the neighbors started to do construction. And then that was not okay. So it was okay that it was making this place better, but now that the neighbors want to make their place better, no, you're ruining my meditation. And the joke I always use is, I hope our heat and silence didn't disturb their noise and their cold. The reality is, again, no answers for you, but coming back to the way you phrased this, you've spent so much time trying to create the perfect quiet environment to meditate in. And that is not life. Life is not perfect and quiet. Life is quiet at times, and life is noisy at times, right? The beeping that you heard, the backing up of the truck, right? Do you like birds? Do you like birds chirping? Give me a sound you like. You're a musician. You like the drums? What if that was like some
Silence. Some of the best music is the silence.
Silence in between the notes. You're so beautiful, right? My point is, I know. My point is that the beeping you labeled as sounds you don't like. And you have another label for sounds. And in this case, the sound of silence, which is still a sound. You have a label for what you like and dislike. And this is the heart of the Buddhist teachings. That we wake up every day of our lives and we have labels and judgments that we put on things. And this is for everybody, because that's why we're all here. And we say, I like this, I don't like this. I want this, I don't want this. The Buddha taught very clearly that we suffer because of our craving and desire. And these are not extreme cravings. These are not extreme desires. These are simple cravings and desires for wanting certain volumes, for wanting certain temperatures, for wanting clothes or hair or shoes to look a certain way. We have all these cravings about things that we fixate on so much. And the practice is to learn to just be comfortable, whether it's beeping or a sound that you enjoy. Beautiful flowing water would be pleasant. They're just sounds. We label them, we dislike them, and then we create a story in our mind and in our hearts that says, I don't like this. And then we're ruined. Now it's like, God, I got to sit here in this misery while they get cold. Good luck till next year. Yes?
I just want to say that when we were meditating, an ambulance passed by, and although ambulance noise is never pleasant, I just automatically thought how lucky we are to live in such a central part of San Diego, where there's a lot going on and there's a hospital right here. And I just got really grateful. I don't know why, but I got grateful to know that there's just we're in a nice city. We're not like in a farm somewhere, but there's nothing going on,
Yeah,
we're always amused by something.
Definitely. And the sounds can be used as triggers, but the sounds are triggers. And we can allow them to trigger us in whatever way we want, right? When we hear sounds like that, it can have many different impacts and effects on us. And it's important to recognize, like Al was saying as well, like what that sound does for you and how it impacts you. And does it bring a sense of gratitude or frustration, a sense of joy or a sense of, anger. So the sounds, to me, ultimately, the practice is to hear the sounds and to not even get wrapped up in, is it a bad sound or a good sound? But to use the sound as something that brings you back to the present moment, right? Thich Nhat Hanh, Deer Park tradition, they have the mindfulness bell. And every so often at the monastery, every few hours, the bells hit. And whatever you're doing at that moment of time, you just stop for a few seconds, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, whatever it is. And the bell is there to bring you back to the present moment. And it's a beautiful bell, and it sounds peaceful, and everyone's running around busy at the monastery. It stops. But what if Deer Park used some really loud, ugly sound that most people don't like? Would it have the same effect? Probably not, because we have untrained minds. Use the sounds as moments to just come back to the present moment. It's not about the sound at all, you know? I mean, I love what you said, and I love what you said, but ultimately it's not about any story we create with the sound. And I'll add to that, that's our day-to-day life. Did anyone have anyone today say something to them they didn't like? Those were sounds. You chose how to respond to them. You either heard it as pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. That's what the Buddha taught, pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. If the words that were said to us didn't align with what we wanted to hear, you know, it was like the beeping that made us, or that made us angry or frustrated, or took us out of our pleasant place. If it was pleasant words that were spoken to us, it was something that brought us a sense of gratitude and happiness and joy. But either way, it's just people expressing what they need to express, which I know nobody in here has ever done that, of course. And I know everyone in here has only spoken kind words to others, so. Sounds, yeah.
For all this subject, I actually, when I first came here, started coming here in February, I was living in a place that was constant chaos, constant before. But I remember when it was long ago next door, it was 8 night. As soon as the meditation started, and it would stop. At first, I was like, and then I just latched on to it. It's just the sound, maybe, so it is, and it actually helped me. So.
Yeah, no sounds. They're phenomenal. Other questions? Yeah.
One of the things I struggle with is you have people around you who you feel contribute to your life, and you have people that you encounter who are, at least in my perception, negative influences in your life. And one of the things that I've always heard is don't spend your time with people who drive you crazy. I'm not to the point yet where I can cause crazy people to mean nothing.
Where you can cause what?
Crazy people to mean nothing.
Oh, right.
But I'm sitting here thinking, all right, that may be the goal, but I have to live my life where I'm at.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like I should associate with crazy people.
Yeah, I mean, we all try to avoid crazy people, again, because nobody in here is crazy. So it's nice that we can gather in a room of 70 people where we finally have all the crazy people out of our lives. So I just want to start there. It's nice to sit with people who aren't crazy. I'm as crazy as anyone I've ever known, and I've been at this a long time. I'm obviously doing it wrong. I understand that. Couple things. One, I suggest, just as kind of a general, theme, and just because you said the word specifically, it's sometimes difficult when we look at things we talk about within Buddhism as goals. Because having a goal means many things, different people, but it's that you're trying to get somewhere. And I get it in the context you use it, that you want to get to a place where, as you say, crazy people, don't drive you crazy, right? But the reality is, nobody makes you crazy. Nobody makes you angry. Nobody makes you sad. Nobody makes you depressed. You, my friend, are doing that all to yourself. They are just expressing what they need to express. And this is the nature of your question. It's like, okay, intellectually I can understand that, but I'm not there yet. Okay. That's it. You're not there yet. But if you keep working on it every day, not as a goal, but just moment to moment, I'm going to practice when I see or hear someone that I normally would label as crazy, and I want to learn to be okay with it. Can you start with understanding that maybe they're suffering? Maybe they've had a bad day. Maybe they've had a bad life. Maybe they had a bad, whatever it might be. And so what they're doing that is driving you crazy, when you open up your heart, you open up your mind, you recognize that they're suffering just like you are, that's how you begin to cut through and get to where you're wanting to get to, right? But it's not a leap. It's a day-to-day practice of every time you see somebody doing anything you don't like, remind yourself that they're human. They've just as many struggles and challenges and difficulties as you are. In fact, they're sitting in some class right now asking a question saying, how do I get all these crazy people out of my life? Right? Yeah, they're trying to get you out of their life. But you understand what I'm saying? The goal is difficult. It's a practice. And the fact that you're here, the fact that you're continuing to be here, the fact that you're asking these questions, the fact that you're showing up, the fact that you're aware of not wanting to be that way anymore is beautiful. Because there would have been a time in your life, probably, 3, 6, 9, 12 months ago, where you wouldn't be asking this question. You'd have been screaming, yelling, kicking, punching at these people who are driving you crazy. And now you actually want to be okay with them. That's beautiful. Yeah? Yeah. Other questions? Yeah.
I don't know if this is a question, it's more of an observation. So meditation basically, for me, emphasized the beauty of silence and focusing on quietness. I personally grew up in New York City, and for me, I found peace in all the different sounds that I grew up hearing, the subways, the taxis. So for me, the move to San Diego has been a big shift. Now it's very quiet. So I do find a lot of peace in a lot of noise and a lot of listening to music.
Right.
So it's hard to shift that view.
Sure.
Do you have a suggestion of how to look at it in a different way, or
Not really. Yeah, I think that I'm gonna kind of bring it back to people, because what I keep hearing, the challenges for the most part, for the majority of us, you're not all here tonight because you have trouble with sounds. I mean, how many of you were sitting at home today at noon and you're like, you know what, I'm having a lot of trouble with sounds, I'm gonna go meditate tonight, It's people that we have trouble with. And often that person is ourselves, first of all. We don't want to skip over that person, right? The key person at the center of all of our stories, right? And while I totally honor and hear and respect what you're saying, I just want to bring it back to people. That we have difficulty with people, we have difficulty with ourselves. And if we can actually start with ourselves, right? You're not nearly as bad, horrible, mean of a person or whatever things you might call yourself as you might think you are. Most people don't end up here because they think they're wonderful, happy, kind people, right? Most of those people don't roam into meditation places or Buddhist places. We roam into them because we have some view or perception of ourselves that isn't so pleasant. And we think, I'm not this enough, I'm not that enough, I'm not this, I'm not that. And we take so much burden and pressure and responsibility on ourselves. And we're not okay with ourselves. And then we take that self, and we try to kind of bounce off of and interact with other human beings, also known as the sounds. And that's where the real challenges kind of come into our lives. I really have no idea where I'm going with this. But I just want to bring it back to, I hear you all on the sounds, right? But I want to bring it back to, like, can we be okay with us? And then when we're okay with us, can we then interact with other people in the world and be okay with whatever, like all the people that you interact with, they are all their own sound. Some of them are quiet and peaceful, and some of them are loud. And some of you like loud, and some of you like quiet and peaceful, right? I mean, how many people did you judge and critique and label today? I mean, it's like almost 8 o'clock by now. That's probably a lot of people, right? Can we just go through our days and observe what's around us? And that's why, kind of coming back to the noise, that's why sitting in noise or silence and having a balance of the two is so important, because it shows us how quickly our mind goes from liking to disliking. And when we do that with people, how quickly our mind goes to liking this person or not liking this person. Liking what they did, not liking what they did, approving of what they did, or disapproving of what they did. We constantly do that. Can we just learn to be okay with people as they are, whatever noises they're making throughout their lives? Because that's why most of us are here, you know? Yeah.
So, is it all situational?
Yes. There is no does. Yes. The answer to that, yes. There are no exceptions to this, right? Regardless of the scenario, everything is there is a sound, and then there's us. And there's our perception of that sound, of that person, of that situation. We give it meaning. It doesn't mean that everything in the world is great. It's not. The world is a mess. It's chaos. There are disgusting, horrible, horrific things going on every day. And it doesn't mean that they're okay. But what our perception of those things do to us is the struggle. Right? And that's why, Thich Nhat Hanh, the great, for being really kind of coined as the one who the engaged Buddhist practice and working with Martin Luther King Jr. and social justice issues and standing up for people's rights and what you believe in. These things are really, really beautiful and important and necessary, right? But if you do it from a place of hatred and anger, then you're just lost in your own hatred and anger. We see disgusting, horrific things happening in this world every single day. What I'm talking about doesn't mean you're saying that those things are okay or good. It means you're not going to allow it to destroy you, which is what often happens. We get destroyed when our latte is not made properly. Some people. Again, not these people. But. Yeah. Hey, Johnny, will you flip the light on, please, in the back there? I want to make sure I can see all your smiling faces. Thanks.
I just had one comment about that.
Yeah.
It's like, you can't fight hatred with hatred, because all they do is double the hatred.
Correct.
And that's really the essence of the whole thing.
And that it's so true, and that requires us to stop for a moment when we see things immediately that trigger us. That's why it's so important to stop for a moment and recognize, what are these emotions I'm sitting with? Is this anger? Is this hatred? Is this rage? And am I going to act from this place? And could I or should I stop for a moment and pause and think about, how can I act on this with some sense of compassion and wisdom? We have to create that gap, because we snap quickly. Yeah.
No, I was just thinking about how today I saw some pictures of like the concentration camps, like those detention things, and I got angry, and my anger made me want to do something about it and
Sure.
acting from a neutral place. So would you think that some degree of strong emotion, for example, anger, is necessary?
So we're not going to we don't live these emotionless lives,
Right.
right? And it's a common question where people say, well, my anger motivated me.
Right.
My anger inspired me, right? If you really break that down, you saw images of a concentration camp. They had a deep impact on you.
Right.
That feeling of anger. And then it motivated you. I'm kind of putting words in your mouth, but this is what I'm hearing from what you're saying. It motivated you and inspired you to want to do something to change things or to make a difference. That change and difference that you're making in that action, if that continues from a place of anger, all people are going to feel is your anger and hate. So if the initial, I'm not saying that you're just going to wake up one day and no longer have any emotion of anger. But if you're driven by that emotion of anger, at some point in time, if the love and compassion doesn't kick in, then all of your actions are only going to be played out from a place of anger. And that will come out. So I hear you on the anger motivating you, but at some point in time, to me, it has to shift to a sense of love and compassion. Otherwise, things that are created and environments and societies and views and treatment of others that are created from a place of hate, if we add the hate and anger to it, that's kind of what Chuck was saying, we're just spinning in nothing but anger and hate. And it's really just something you yourself have to watch. We know when we're doing things, I think, out of hatred and anger. We know when we're coming from an open heart with love. And that's, to me, that's what the great teachers, great religious leaders, great people who fought for so many things all over the world. They're coming from a place of love, not hate or anger. Does that make sense? Yeah. One more question, and we'll wrap up here. Yeah. Wait, anybody else before I go back to Chuck? Please. All right, Chuck, you're up.
Kind of carrying on what I was talking about before a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
I had a situation where I read something online that was really disparaging to my beliefs in that. And initially, I got a little angry about it. I said, well, how do I respond to this? Well, you can respond either like, I'm not going to respond. Or you can sit there and think about it. How can I respond? You have to really concentrate on how am I going to respond to this in a compassionate way, in a kind way. And it took me probably a couple of hours to figure that out.
Yeah,
Probably.
I find that, often, especially if you're new to meditation or Buddhist practice, often we think that maybe it's going to make things easier, right? But meditation, Buddhist practice, when you really start working on this stuff, it's not easy. What's easy is to be mean and nasty to people or angry towards others. That's easy if that's what we're used to. But to actually stop and pause and try not to bring more anger or hatred into the world is difficult. It's really hard. Yeah.
So I tend to be motivated by love and passion things in my life, people, the things that I choose to do, the way I choose to do things. But I seem to do it to a fault that I become too wrapped up in it. And it seems to either overwhelm myself or others.
Sure.
So it's an opposite issue. Because I once had anger issues. I used to have pure rage as my motivator, as my driver.
Yes.
But I've been able to move over to something about passionate, but it seems to be, I seem to be doing it to the point that it's overwhelming.
Overwhelming for you?
For me and sometimes for others. So I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah, there's a balance, and there's a middle path, which is really kind of the essence, one of the hard teachings, I think, in Buddhism, especially for us lay folks, so for all people. But to find a balance is important, and without, we don't have enough time really to get into details, but I don't ever think one can have too much compassion. I don't think we can have too much compassion. Yeah, it's really hard to kind of touch on that in depth, but if other people are kind of tired of your niceness, then share the niceness maybe elsewhere. Because there's plenty of people out there that could benefit from the compassion that you want to bring into the world. I'm not saying, to cuss them out and run away and say, I'm going to go be nice to somebody else. And also often, it happens a lot, I'll close with this thought with caretakers, parents, providers, things like that, where we bring so much empathy, so much compassion into others that we don't often then take care of ourselves. And that's really the oxygen mask, kind of metaphor on the airplane. It says you got to put on yourself first before the child. So, I don't totally understand the part about having too much compassion, and it's not necessarily helpful for you, but make sure you have compassion for yourself first. Did you have lots of anger and rage when you were 16 years old? Oh yeah, we would have been best friends, all right? So what I can say is that from someone who grew up that way and through this practice, I couldn't skip the part where I had to have the compassion and love for myself, the forgiveness towards myself, the kindness towards myself. If you go from anger and rage to trying to save the world, and you're not trying to take care of you, you're going to end up sometimes where you might be right now. So the same compassion you're pouring towards others, sometimes stop, look in the mirror and say, hey, I'm a decent human being too, and I deserve the love and compassion towards myself. Does that make sense? Not easy. And that's why I said the practice is not easy. This practice sometimes makes your life more difficult. But suffering sucks. And so the other end of the spectrum is to just suffer endlessly, and that's really not so much fun. So we continue to work on it. Yeah. So with that, we'll close. I'll join palms. And the benefit of this practice is shared with all beings in all directions. May all beings be at peace. May all be free from suffering. May any merit gained be transferred to Max during his time of suffering and their family and friends who suffer at this time.